Oh, rise and shout. Let's get to what's trending.
The main focus, elevating our play so we can be competitive in that league.
That's one of the things that was so intriguing about coming to BYU is this transition into the Big 12 is exciting.
It is exciting, and it's an expectations extravaganza, if you will, today. What's trending, presented by Bodyguards, protection for a life worth living. Learn more at bodyguards.com. Jarom, when we discuss expectations, yeah, they waver from time to time, but let's put on the blue goggles a little bit today, shall we? Can you do this with me?
Blue goggle alert.
All right.
Blue goggle alert.
How many wins would it
Blue
take
goggle alert.
to exceed expectations for BYU in year one of the Big 12? And let's start on the football side specifically.
American football, that's what we're talking about?
Yes.
8 would be above. Because I'm thinking BYU goes 2-1 in non-conference. That's easy enough. 3-0 would be great. And then like 4-5, 5-4, right, would get you to 6 or 7 wins. And then you win a bowl game, and maybe you get to 7 or 8. So 8 would be above. We feel like BYU is more prepared than Utah was, right, to go into a Power 5, given the schedules that BYU played, obviously. Therefore, BYU needs to do better than Utah did the first couple of seasons. Utah went 8-5 in year one.
So BYU needs to be better than 8-5 in year one?
No, they went 5-7, 5-7.
Okay.
So first 3 years, yeah. Can you keep your head above 500? Can you go to bowl games? Can you build up? Can you have a year where you kind of stick out? They had 1 year, right, at 8-5. We believe that, and by the way, 7 of the next 9 after that, Utah had 9+ wins. 7, and one of those was the COVID year, so you almost throw it out. Like 7 of the next 8, essentially, full seasons. That's pretty impressive. I would love for BYU to have the success that Utah did in its first 11 years in the Pac-12. Go to the Rose Bowl twice. Like, that's great. Maybe BYU can go to that game and, win that game. Just going to the game would be enough, let's be honest. So how will I quantify some of the success in that process, right? Because are we outcome-based or process-based here? We're both, but because you have to win. But, okay, defensively, what are we looking at? Okay, last year, defensively, 96th in points per play, 96th in yards per play, 117th in takeaways, 124th in success rate. Those are the 4 things I'm looking at, okay, to tell me how BYU is doing. Those stunk, okay? So obviously be better at those. So what, I don't know, top 70 in those would be great, like that level of improvement. Granted, you're playing a tougher schedule. Keep that in mind. Offensively, can BYU approximate what they did last year? BYU was really good. Look at these numbers in those same categories. 15th in yards per play. 19th in points per play. Again, those take out tempo. 17th, well, because you played Air Force and Navy. The game was shorter, whatever. Tied for 5th in giveaways. 17th in success rate. BYU's offense was really good. Really good. Don't look at points per game. Look at points per play, yards per play, those kind of things. Those tell you what's up. BYU had a top 20 offense. They had multiple NFL players on that side of the ball. Hopefully, BYU can be a top 30 offense and a top 70 in some of this stuff defense. And I think that would yield 7 or 8 wins, if not more. And again, just because you pop up with 8-5 in year one, remember Utah, take note, 5-7 the next 2 years. What we don't want is just like a flash in the pan year one and then to go away. We'd like sustained success and at some point to be competing for conference championships. Will that take a decade like it took Utah? We're hoping it takes 3 to 7 years, that you can get into that space a little more comfortably and sooner. But that's what exceeding expectations would look like to me. The simple answer is 8+ wins.
Yeah, it's always going to come down to the win-loss category when we're determining ultimate success. And I've said for a while now, I expect BYU to win 7 games and probably lose 5. And I've been told a number of times, way too ambitious. Just get to a bowl game. And so I feel like a lot of BYU fans have the baseline expectation of just go 6-6 and we'll call it good. But I feel like this team is better than 6-6. Yeah, I know that they're playing a tougher schedule and they're playing 10 Power 5 teams for the first time ever. But BYU's schedule last year, taking out, the fact that they didn't play as many Power 5s as they did in 2021, they still have high-quality Group of 5 opponents that are comparable to some of the lower tier teams in the Power 5 conference. I feel like BYU played a pretty comparable schedule last year to what they will face next year. It's a little bit harder.
Just didn't have the lowly Pac-12 to beat up from 21. Pac-12 got way better in 22. Like if BYU had played those same teams in 22, there's maybe BYU goes 3-2. Right?
Apparently it was COVID's fault for all of that. Okay? Take what you will from that. But 7-5 is my expectation. So exceeding expectations means BYU's going 8-4. And I feel like, awesome. Okay, maybe that's too much. Maybe that's too much. So maybe it should just be, okay, they go 7-5 and they win a bowl game and they're 8-5. If BYU goes 8-5 and they manufacture the same exact record that they had last year with a tougher schedule as a Power 5 team, then yeah, just in the win-loss category by nature alone, that is exceeding expectations. So 7-5, just get to 8, including the bowl game. That is exceeding expectations. 6-6, I'd be fine with. You go to a bowl game, great. Just don't miss out on a bowl game. I feel like this team has too much talent. Keaton Slovis is too talented a quarterback. He's got too many weapons on offense. There's enough returning on the offensive line. BYU should be able to find a way to win 6 games. I like the idea that 7-5 would also probably have to mean that BYU has a winning record in conference. They could go 3-0 in non-con and go 4-5 in Big 12 play and still finish 7-5, but I'm inclined to believe that 7-5 would probably mean 2-1 in non-con and 5-4 in the Big 12. A winning record in the Big 12 in year 1 sounds really nice. I want to add to your takeaways number, and I like your numbers breakdown because BYU just did not create enough havoc. You talked about that with Kelly Papinga. BYU had 15 sacks last year, and I know that sacks are not like as important as we maybe pay attention to, but 15 sacks, Jarom, was 130th in the country last year. There was only one team that had fewer sacks than BYU, and it was pre-Deion Sanders Colorado, who had 9, and they were abysmal on defense. 15 sacks, 130th in the country. BYU can be better than that. And creating more havoc. Takeaways at 117. I'm with you. I am looking specifically at the defensive side of the ball. And if we're looking at Bill Connolly's SP Plus projections, I think he had BYU in the low 90s going in, if not high 80s. It's moved a little bit. BYU's got to be top 70 in that. Like, give me top 70 defensive efficiency SP Plus projection, and that starts, I believe, with takeaways and sacks. You just have to have more havoc rate. That would be exceeding expectations, thus leading to more wins. Let's go.
If anyone can find havoc rate nationally in the ratings, let me know. I can't find it.
I can't create it?
Well,
how would we create that?
You can manually do it. I don't want to manually do it. Topic 2. Same question for men's hoops. How many wins would it take to exceed expectations next year?
Oh, man. 6-12 in the Big 12, 17-15 overall. Maybe that's too ambitious, but I believe that Mark Pope's going to be able to go and find some pieces this year, guys specifically that were denied a chance to play in a Power 5 conference that feel like they're awesome. Maybe they've gone to a smaller conference and excelled and been amazing.
Can BYU afford them?
An Antoine Davis type at Detroit Mercy. Like, can BYU go and find that guy with the caveat that now you get to play in the best conference in America? BYU was still playing in the West Coast Conference last year.
They were.
And the selling point for a one-and-done guy like Rudy Williams is, yeah, we're going to the Big 12, but this is it in the West Coast Conference. Do you think Rudy would be excited about having the prospect coming back and going back to the Big 12, but as a senior? There's going to be a few more, I feel, big players, big personalities that are going to help BYU and come and can be an immediate leader. But to your point, can BYU afford that type of player? I feel like there will just be more options than BYU had last year. So, yes, BYU will be able to afford somebody that's a tier B+, A- type player that can come in and impact the team right away, just because of the Big 12 alone. So 17-15, 6-12 in the conference. If you're above 500.
Are you including Kansas City or no? Get that to 31. That'd be the number.
Is it? We don't know how many games there will be. Is it? Oh, does it have to be 31 games?
If you're playing an MTE, it's 31.
Okay. So does the NCAA mandated that, by the way? I didn't realize that it has to be 31 games.
Well, it depends if you're playing an MTE. Yeah. If you don't, then I think it's 30.
Okay. Yeah. Well, regardless, case 17.
BYU will play in an empty.
17-14, 6-12 in conference. That would mean you'd have to go, 11-2 in non-con. But maybe you just super lighten up the non-con, build chemistry with your team, get those new guys in position, figure it out, and get into the Big 12. But I believe that the Marriott Center will have the magic next year. Every game's going to be huge. And I don't think that, some BYU fans are giving that enough credit. It's going to be tough for some Big 12 teams to come in here, and BYU is going to sneak a few wins away because of the Marriott Center.
They'll have to do what they didn't do this year, which is win those big games. Lost both by 1, St. Mary's and Gonzaga, but traditionally BYU clips at least one of those guys at home, and now you have an opportunity against the majority of them. You're going to play 9 Big 12 home games, and 7 of those are going to be probably against teams that are in the top 40 or 50 in net. There's quad 1s and 2s every game.
Well, if you want to talk about a metric, let's start with three-point shooting, Jarom. It's going to be better for the team, and it has to be.
Sure hope so. Trevor Nell will help that by himself. I say above 500 overall is good.
Okay.
We're about to go into the toughest thing BYU's ever done in sports.
So is your expectation
Big 12 men's hoops?
Is it 500 and then exceeding is anything above 500?
500 overall, and then if BYU can get to 6 wins in league, honestly, I'm keeping it super low. 1, because we don't know what BYU has from a roster standpoint. 2, BYU's on a 4-year slide down. Hopefully they can slide up. Things can change quickly.
Climb back
Perhaps
up.
BYU men's basketball does that. And then 3 is, in the Big 12, we just don't know exactly what it's going to be like. The fewest amount of teams any of the 10 played this year against top 25 teams was 13 games. 13 games. This year, I believe BYU played 7 of those, 5 of which came in the WCC. So in non-con, I think BYU needs to go and do what they did. Listen, for as many issues as this year's team had, they went 10-3 in non-con. And they played a couple of challenging games, right? Utah and Creighton and Butler and Dayton and whatnot. If you can go 10-3 in non-con and somehow get to 6-12 in
16 and 15 overall.
Hey, I'd take it, because men's basketball is not as ready as football is, and the league's harder. So those 2 things are difficult right now. Men's basketball at the base of Everest, as Mark Pope has said, they certainly understand the climb that is the challenge next.